Today I'm going to be looking at a major haul of games we picked up on Friday and Sunday. Now, this was a sale that was advertised on Facebook Marketplace, and it was a closing out sale for, I think it was a board game cafe down in the nasty part of downtown East Side, where all the drug addicts are. I had never heard of this place, and I'm not surprised it closed because of the area that it was in. I mean, you can't really even go out there and stand out there without being harassed by beggars or drug addicts that are freaking out. I mean, we were standing outside there in the line at 4 o'clock on Friday, and there's just people hanging around there losing their minds on drugs. So it's not a safe area, and I couldn't see how they would ever have survived trying to do a board game cafe in that area, because you really wouldn't want to be down in that area. So it was a bad location. It was probably cheap. But anyway, I had never heard of the place, and they also, so they had games that they were letting people play, and then if you liked them, you could buy them. So they had a large stock of new games as well. So anyway, the sale was advertised as 40 to 50% off, and there was a big list of games mentioned in the list. So I wrote down a few titles, and then we went early on the Friday. Got there at around 3:30, and there was maybe about 10 people ahead of us. It wasn't bad. And then there was a huge lineup half hour later behind us. So they had some weird system there where they were only letting in a few people at a time. And so the first 7, 8 people went in, and then nobody came out for at least a half an hour. So what they were doing was they were taking lists from people at the back and then looking for those games through their inventory, so you didn't even have access to see these games. So they were taking all their time to bring games out to people who stood in line with the list. And there were some games out on the tables. It was just a big mess. So they realized their mistake, and they changed that over the next day so that they would then avoid the list thing, and then they brought out all the games to the tables and then organized them. You know, if there was like 3 copies of a game, like this one, they would be stacked together so you could see what was left. So it was chaos there the first night. Luckily, we got in, so I got pretty well first pick of the good stuff. So I'm going to go through these games that we picked up, and I think we were in there for at least an hour and a half. I mean, there was a huge lineup to get out to the till. That was taking forever. And even though there were 2 people working there, it seemed to be like a 45-minute wait with 5 people in the till lineup. And there were people with huge carts filling up stuff. So they had a lot of very popular games, like they had Terraforming Mars and Concordia and Ark Nova. Of course, those went really fast, and I didn't care about those. I had more specialized things on my list. Anyway, let's go through the games that I picked up. Like I say, this is something that I have never really seen happen in Vancouver. Finding stores that close out and have a really good sale are pretty rare. That's the first time in 25 years I've ever seen anything like that happen here. So most of the time you're stuck to just dealing with Facebook sales and used sales. So it was nice to see that they were not only giving the 50% off, but no tax. So it was straight bring cash or debit card and no tax. So that was great. So I grabbed some things right away that I saw that I knew were not going to be showing up again. All right, so this is Welcome to the Moon, which had fairly good reviews. And this one I got for half price, so $22.50 sealed. So it looked like a fair deal, and hopefully it is good. It's pretty heavy. So if anybody's ever played this game, you can leave a comment and let me know what you think. It says 1 to 6 players. I don't know if this is a roll or write or what it is. But there was one called Welcome to Las Vegas that I was going to get, and that one did not look very, it didn't have great reviews. So, observing on the first shelf, there was a game that I have actually played, and it is Twilight Struggle. Now, it's the original. It's a classic, and I've played this on the app. And I never played it on the actual board game, but it is a two-player game, and as you know, we only play two-player games. So this is still considered a classic. I think it's been out for 15 years. So I figured I would check it out, even if I only get in a couple of games. Can always sell it. But it was the only one I saw there, so I think I was lucky to get this. So they would list the retail price and then do half of that. So $32 on this one, sealed, which is pretty good. So this is the deluxe edition from 2021. And like I said, it's a classic two-player game. So the next one I got is the Guild of Merchant Explorers. Again, one I had read about a few years ago, and I had been thinking about getting it, and I never did. Maybe it was too expensive. So this was kind of getting into the thing where you see games that are like, well, maybe I can try it out because it's a reasonable price. So always like searching reviews on games before I was picking them up. A lot of things I had never heard of there. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I did see on the shelf that were still there actually on the Sunday, which was the third day. They still had like 4 copies of Hamburg from Stefan Feld, the Queen Games retail edition, not sold. And that was a regular $100 game that was marked down to $50. So I asked the guy about it. I said, are you going to mark these down even more, as I see you have a lot of them? So he marked it down to $40, and it still didn't sell. So it just shows you nobody cares about this game. Also because it is one of the worst Stefan Feld games, and they really ruined it with the remake from Queen Games. The original game is apparently still better. So they made a huge box, and the big mistake was they did not include language text on the cards. It was just iconography, and apparently that's what kills the game, is that everything is very hard to understand, and that you're constantly going back and forth in the rule book. So we went back and forth on this one because Suzanne is from Hamburg, and we spent years in Hamburg. So it was kind of like, oh, this would be cool to play. But after seeing the bad reviews about the lack of English language cards, which apparently were not even included in the super deluxe version of the game, which was like $150. You had to buy those language cards separate for another $20. So it's just money grabbing, greed from Queen Games, and totally turned off a lot of people from Queen Games. So they obviously have a huge overstock of this game and will probably never sell them. So anyway, that was the one game we saw still there. And then there were a lot of junk titles, really obscure things that have no listing on Board Game Geek, or they're not even in the top 15,000. And I was like, am I going to risk even $5 on this? And I said no. Things I saw like Concordia, there were still some copies of that, not on Sunday, but I saw people had grabbed that. And then there was lots of Azul, which we already have. So anyway, this one looks good, and like I say, this was half price, which is pretty reasonable. This is like paying prices from the year 2005, when you only have to pay, I think this was $27. And the next one up, and I was really happy to get this, was Lacrimosa, the game about Mozart. Now, this came out, I think, a year ago. It's not that old. I don't think it was a big seller. And again, I was not sure about this initially. I had heard some lukewarm reviews and some good reviews. And the, maybe the name was not appealing to people. Lacrimosa, like, what does that mean? I don't know what it means. And I'm a musician. So the theme probably didn't catch on, and they had one of these, as far as I could see. And actually, I had to get them to dig for this in the back. I gave them my list, and I think I had Ankh Gods of Egypt on there, which is a game I already own, and I had not unwrapped yet, but they had one there showing it as $50. And it was supposed to be half of that price, which is crazy low, because that game is like $130 retail, 100 to 130. So I was going to get that, but it was even gone already when we first got in there on Friday night at 4:30. So this one, I had asked the girl to look for it, and she couldn't find it. And then another guy I asked later, and he managed to find it. So I don't know if there were more, but this one was 73 retail, and so I got it for $36.50. Pretty good deal. So I'm looking forward to trying this out. And I knew that mostly people would go for things that are really popular, like there was Splendor, and they also had used games. Now the used ones, which are, the things that the store used to entice people to buy, here's a copy of, whatever, to play, they had really prepared them nicely, because all the cards in the games were sleeved, and even the rule books were laminated on separate pages. So, obviously nothing is going to get damaged or ruined, which was a great idea. So a lot of those games were available used. And I didn't initially look too much in that section, because I thought, oh, it's going to be junk, or it's going to be damaged or missing pieces. But they had really taken care of them. And I'll show you an example of that soon. Now here's the big one from Friday night. War of the Ring. Again, another two-player game. This is second edition. Now, this game was really increased in price over the last few years. I originally bought this, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. I got a slightly damaged copy from a store online, and I think it was $40. And that was already cheap, very cheap at the time. Well, now the game new is $100. And so they listed this as a $100 retail down to $50, which is a great deal, considering it's sealed and not damaged. So now I had the game originally, and I sold it sealed because I didn't think Suzanne was going to get into this, and we weren't going to play it. So I sold it, and then I've been thinking about it for the last few years, like I should really have tried it at least once just to see, because that's most of the battle for me, is just trying a game. And a lot of times I only need one play, then I'll move on to something else. So I figured it's probably worth it, and it's good resale value, right? I mean, it's in the top 20, I think, on Board Game Geek. So this is, I thought it was a great deal, and I saw only one on the shelves. So I grabbed that pretty quickly. On the second day out there, we were given a large, everybody got a bin, like a plastic bin that they could put their games in. So that was the first haul. So I think that was 6 games, and I figured this out. If I would purchase this from 401 Games, for example, it would have been like $450 with shipping, and got all this for about $207. So great deal. And yeah, it was like Christmas in April. That's what it felt like. I mean, I've never been in and I think I've gone to some trade convention things where you could bring your games and people would sell their used stuff. But generally getting new stuff was always very difficult. Now the other game I picked up, now this has nothing to do with that event there at that store that was closing. I did get this on Saturday from somebody in New Westminster who was selling it. Now this again is a 2-player game that I played once years ago. Polis Fight for the Hegemony, and it is a classic 2-player game that also probably didn't sell very well because of this sort of bland cover and name. But I've been looking for this for a while, and I managed to get this from used for $25, which I thought was fair. The guy wouldn't drop it anymore, and I hadn't seen any more copies, and I didn't want to buy the new version of the game, which is like $70, which is much larger and probably just takes up space that we don't really have on this table. So I figured, is another one, I want to try it at least one more time and see if it holds up. I just remember the game was incredibly long when I played it with this guy, and we both didn't know how to play, so we had to learn it. And I think it took us like 8 hours. to get through it. We had a great time, but it was a really long play. But two-player only games, I always enjoy them. And that's, of course, what we're mostly playing. So next we're going on to the Sunday Hall. We went back at, I think, 11:30 we got there. It opened up at noon. And this time there was only, well, it was the same amount of people ahead of us, like 9 people. So some of them I recognized right away. They had been there on Friday, and then they were coming back on Sunday. So this time it was way better organized. We all got in like right away, and everything was organized on the tables, stacked in their categories, and everything put together, not strewn all everywhere. So I did this one, Star Wars, the deck building game. Not something I even really thought about, but once I looked it up and I saw it had almost an 8 out of 10 rating, I figured it would be worth checking out because the theme, and it's also a simple game, kind of like a Star Realms, Shards of Infinity style deck builder where you're buying cards from the rows and then building up your deck. So it's using a lot of cliched mechanisms, but it's got dark and light side of the force that you can use as it swings from one side to another that lets you use certain cards. And at first I thought it was a collectible game, because then I had to read about it that this was actually a standalone, because there were multiple copies, and I was like, oh, do I need to buy more to get build a good deck? But thankfully it isn't like that. It is a all-in-one. Everything's included. So that was half price. I think the regular retail was about, I think 20. Yeah, so retail 40. There's no way I would pay 40 for this. But I figure for 20, it should be okay to try out. So that was the Star Wars game. Then I've got this one. Now this is another one that's been out for years, and it also didn't sell, called Carthago. Now here's an example of how well they took care of their own copies of the game. They laminated the entire rule book. So, this would be a bit of money involved just to do that yourself, and that's got a ring. So there's no more damage to the rule book. And everything was put into bags with labels on them. There are trade cards, ship cards, red components, everything they really went all out on this. It looks like this hasn't even been played. There's a score pad, and this game you can get pretty cheap, like even new now. I don't think you need to pay more than 20 bucks because it didn't sell. But it's one that I wanted to check out because I've read some good reviews about it. And I think it's the guy who made Peloponnes. How do you pronounce that? Peloponnese or whatever it is. It's the same designer from that game. Now, this one, because it was opened already, was 75% off. Only had to pay $9 for this. So I thought, well, it was a great deal. And look, I don't have to punch anything out. I mean, if I could get games like this new, I would probably prefer it. Everything that's already bagged and labeled. This is a lot of work to do, and I didn't have to do it. So that's a steal. $9. All right, now the next one is one I think I picked up. Yeah, I picked this one up yesterday. I got a sealed one on Friday. And now this is a game I've owned before. There's the sealed one. So it's still a highly rated game. It's in the top 100, and I've owned this before. I have played it and I liked it, and then I sold it probably because I think we were going to move, and I had to get rid of a lot of my games for the move. So I kind of regretted selling it, and I've been wanting to get it again for the last couple of years. And really nobody was selling one used at a reasonable price. So this again is a, yeah, they had 73 retail. So $36.50 for the sealed one. And then I got this one opened, 19 bucks. I mean, that's just hilarious. And everything's in good shape here. It looks like that this hasn't even been touched, the rule book. Normally you could tell right away if people have been leafing through it. Again, super organized. Labels on everything. I mean, I don't even do this with my games. I don't put labels on them. So like, just wow. So a great deal. I mean, 2 copies for 50 bucks, I think. 53 bucks. So that I was really happy with, and look forward to playing this again. So unfortunately, they did not have this, the expansion. I probably would have picked that up. So now I think that covered the first day games, and then we're looking some into the second day now. Okay, well the second day was already done, some of them here. The Carthago, and Star Wars. And now I'll continue with another one I picked up, and I think this was the only copy I saw there. It was First Rat. Again, one that has good reviews, fairly simple to play, but fun, and I thought it's worth taking a chance on it. And this was $26 after their half price. So not bad. So again, you know, I knew that this is got a good resale value too. Like some games have no resale value. Like this Polis game, I paid 25 bucks. I know for sure there's no way I'm going to get that if I sell it. I'll probably be lucky to get 10, 15. Because there's a new version, so a lot of people would not even want to have the old version anymore. But First Rat is an easy resale. Like I've seen people selling this for 40 bucks used. So good price and not too complicated to play. So that is from Sunday. And then I got this one, another classic from Stefan Feld that was marked down from 40. So this was the actual price I paid, and yeah, I mean, what you're going to pay double for that in retail. So this again was surprising to see on the shelf, and there were still like 4 or 5 of them, and that was on Sunday, and I was really shocked because this is one of his top 4 games, top 3 maybe. And I mean, I like it way better than Castles of Burgundy, which is his most popular title. But because it's old, you're looking at something that is now 14 years old. Probably people don't remember it anymore. And so it just sat there, which was a shame. So somebody was asking me about it, and I said, yeah, you should definitely check this out because it's one of his best. Now, we owned this game 10 years ago, and again, it was something I sold off. Maybe it wasn't getting played, or I go through these phases of having games, and if they sit around too long, I get tired of looking at them, and then I just sell them. So I felt like playing this again, and that's definitely a great price to try it out. They actually had a used one. We were going to get the used one, which would have been like $14 cheaper, but decided that we would stick with the new one because it wasn't a major price difference. Now, another example of an open game, and I've owned this before as well. And I sold it again, probably because we were going to move. Whistle Mountain still has great reviews, and this was the deal of the day because it was opened. It was 75% off, so it was going to be 20 bucks. So we're in the line, and I was debating this, and you know, Suzanne was like, "I don't know, do we really need to play this again?" And I was thinking, well, it's so cheap, you know, I'd like to get in at least one more play because we didn't really explore the strategies of the game. It wasn't one of these things that you have to that you can really figure out on the first run. So that was in the open pile, and that was the only one I saw. So I just did a quick check, figured everything's in here. So by the time we got to the till, I just told them I was still debating whether to buy this or not. And so then we talked to the woman at the till, and I said, well, if you can lower it to 10, we'll take it. And she ended up doing that. So that was great. So, and then as we're walking out, we're checking our bill and adding things up, and it wasn't correct. Like they undercharged us like $15, I think. So this game ended up being free. So you can't get a better deal than that. That was this big surprise of the day. You know, first I think I'm getting it for $10, and then it turns out that it didn't get even charged on it. So the other one I picked up was also, I think there was only one left, was Circadian's First Light, second edition. Now this is one that came out years ago. I think it's 2000, well, it's actually not that old. It's 22. I thought it was older. But anyway, it had some interesting stuff about being a dice. Oh, here's the retail price of 70. So paid, it's funny, we actually only paid 32 on this, so they didn't even go by the sticker price. So I figured it's worth a shot for that price. I've played some of this guy's games before. This is Garphill Games. And I mean, it's a sci-fi thing. You know, I kind of like sci-fi games. And somebody said it reminded them of Grand Austria Hotel, which is a game we used to own, and we liked it because of the dice selection mechanic. So we picked this up, and the funny part is Suzanne had the bucket of games next to her, and of course people were going through lots of containers there. So some people thought that that was an available bucket, and they started grabbing stuff out of our bucket. So she had to be like, no, these are taken. So somebody asked her if they had seen if she had seen another copy of First Light, but there was not another one. I think there might have been one open one that the store was using. So good deal on that, and I think that covered everything from that day. So it was 6 games on the first day, and 7 on the second day. So I think a total was about 345 for 15 games, which is crazy. So anyway, there's going to be lots of game playing for the next year. Hopefully that will be it for purchases. I have to say, I had a great time going through these bins. It was really like Christmas, just to see what was out there and actually get some newer titles. You know, not just junk. I mean, by the time we finished, I mean, they had Magic the Gathering stuff, and then they had a $5 pile of things. And, you know, I saw Radlands in there. That probably would have been no more than $10. But a lot of things I checked that it didn't have good reviews, so didn't get them. They had like Root expansions. Again, one, I have most of them and haven't even opened them yet. And I didn't bother to get that Root expansion because I didn't need it. So there was a great haul, and I'm quite sure I'm never going to experience anything like this again. As far as sales go, the best we usually can do here in Vancouver is a Christmas Boxing Day sale. You know, at a store in Burnaby, and they knock 20% off. That's usually considered, whoa, 20%, you know, get excited about that. But seeing a place go out with 50% or 75%, and the people working there had nothing to do with the store. They were actually volunteers. So anything left over apparently was going to be donated, or they would maybe try to sell them to other stores. So they did a great job there, and yeah, and you know, you get to see what other people are buying, and you know, there was another game there called Leaf, which we already own, and somebody was looking at it, and I recommended it right away that they should buy it, and it came with an expansion as well, and that also would have been cheap. So you know, it would have been nice to maybe have waited on some games that we bought in the last 6 months. Could have found them there, but you don't know. I mean, this just popped up last week, and I wasn't sure what was going on with it, like what kind of situation it would be down there. Was it a private sale? Was it a store sale? We decided to check it out anyway, and it turned out to be well worth it. And it was only because we got there early that we managed to get in. Apparently on that first night, Friday, they were supposed to be open from 4 to 7. They said they were there till 1 in the morning, and that people didn't actually leave the premises until around 10 o'clock. So they managed to get everybody in there, but they had to stay open a lot longer. So maybe they locked the door and then let everybody else in. So that was this haul, and I'm going to have fun trying to put this all on my shelf, my one shelf. I think I managed to fit about half these games already, so I'm definitely run out of room. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this massive haul video. It's the first time I've ever done anything like this, and I probably will get around to unboxing these games on separate videos in the future. So anyway, this is Board Game Bears, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.